Hi, sorry, I'm doing an Raju, I'm doing an interview. Could you keep sorry about that.
Well.
Okay, so how did this? It started as a campaign, I believe, in 2016 to
Yes.
get rid of the statue. So from then till now, what's happened?
From then till now, and are you recording the video?
Yeah,
or?
yeah. Well,
Okay. Okay. So yes, the campaign started in 2016, and what got the conversation going on campus at least was I was driving by and I saw the statue. It hadn't been announced, it hadn't been publicized, but I just happened to be driving by and I said, "Oh, who is this statue of?" And I looked and I saw, "Oh, it's Gandhi." And it made me think immediately that the people who put it there must not know anything about who Gandhi was. So I took a couple of photos with my phone, and then I sent those photos along with about 52 of his most racist quotes to the entire staff at the university. From there, it started a conversation where, the majority of people said, "We didn't know anything about this. We saw the movie, we thought he was a great guy. Can this be true?" So then they all did their verification. It's a university, so what we're doing is supposed to be based on facts, research, and evidence. So everyone did fact checking and they said, "Oh yes, this is exactly what Gandhi said." Now, eventually the vice chancellor of the entire university replied to that email thread, and he said, "Oh, I read a biography of him and I thought that he changed later on in life." So from there I sent another set of emails that basically dealt with his oppression of the Dalits. A lot of quotes from Baba Saheb Ambedkar, who himself was a Dalit, in terms of the Pune Pact and how Gandhi fought against the special electorates and the double vote for the Dalits there, how he fought against them when they had the Chowdar tank, the Satyagraha that they did there at the Chowdar tank, where essentially they were trying to use the weapon that Gandhi himself fashioned, but Gandhi opposed them in strong terms, where he says that Satyagraha becomes Duragraha when you use it against your own kith and kin, basically saying you can't use these violent techniques against other Hindus, which I thought was very, well, first let me just land with this story. So later on, Gandhi used those exact same non-violent techniques, a fast unto the death, in order to deprive the Dalits themselves of their special electorates and the double vote. So you see the hypocrisy and the double standard. So I sent another email that basically linked the two: his young life fighting against the blacks in South Africa, then his older life fighting against the blacks there in India, to show that throughout his whole life he was pro-Indo-Aryan, as he himself called himself. He said that the British are his fellow colonists, against the Kafirs. I think everyone's familiar with all the quotes. And also, people are saying, "Oh, this is when he was young." He was actually in his 30s when he did this so-called Brahmacharya vow. So that's 1906. He was born in 1869. So this makes him around 36 thereabout. The year after, he was again rallying for the Indians to go to war against the Kafirs. He said, there's another rebellion, let's go back to war against the Kafirs, without thinking of securing any rights thereby. His idea was, let's do an ambulance corps that will just last for a few days, but this is just a ploy so that we can get military training, so we can get rifles to take up our share in defense of the colony to fight these Kafirs. And basically it's the Gandhi that nobody knows about, because he has, if you read his autobiography, you think he changed, but essentially he went from an honest and truthful racist to a pathological liar racist, where he said in his biography, "Oh, my heart was with the Zulus, I bore no grudge against the Zulus, I nursed only wounded soldiers," so forth and so on. But that's not what you get when you read his writings at the time. He didn't know that he was going to get caught up in a lie. But this is what happened. So at the time he was saying, we need rifles to go fight these Kafirs. Oh, the Firearms Act has been passed. This is another opportunity to give Indians guns. We need guns. We need guns. And it's just that the British did not decide to give him guns because they didn't see him on their same level.
Okay, So for our audience, a lot of people don't know about his racist history. They always see him as a peaceful protester who fought the colonizers in India, and he inspired like peaceful movements and stuff like that. Can you tell our audience like why he is like why is he so problematic? Why like how was he racist? Because like I said, a lot of people aren't going to know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Gandhi supported every major war in his lifetime: the Boer War, the Bambata Rebellion, World War I, where he said home rule without military power is useless. That he agitated to all of the people in the crowd that they should sign up for the war. You know, so this is we're talking about 1918, June of 1918 thereabout. So this is, you know, a good 12 years after his so-called vow of nonviolence. He's advocating, and he also has a letter to Franklin D. Roosevelt in World War II, where again he's giving Roosevelt tips on how to win the war. He says, "Oh, I don't like violence, but take my advice on how to." So every single war, he also wrote these letters to Hitler as well, where he addressed Hitler as dear friend, which, you know, is especially problematic when you harken back to how he called himself an Indo-Aryan, where he said the British and the Indians arise from a common stock, the Indo-Aryan. So when you look at the Indo-Aryan stock that he claims to be from, and then you look at Hitler, who is calling himself an Aryan, basically you see how all of these problematics just, you know, interchange. But essentially, the problematic nature of him and his support for war, especially against black people, isn't well known because he made sure that it wasn't well known. So what he did was, again, he lied about his role in his early life. And when I say early life, he's a grown man. He's in his 30s. So a lot of the Gandhi apologists said, oh, you know, he was 23, 24 when he went to South Africa. But then they act like he was trapped in a cryogenic freeze where he didn't age for that entire time he was there. So we're like, okay, so was he still 24 in 1909? No. Was he still 24 in 1911? It's like, let's just pretend like he's 24 the whole time. And it's like, you know, even as a 24-year-old, you're a grown, you know, you're a grown-up. You're not in your parents' house, you know, asking for allowance. You're a grown person, and you have your choices that you make. And, you know, other people say he's a product of his times, but then if you look at somebody like Baba Saheb Ambedkar, that he was also living through that exact same time, but he showed solidarity with the black people throughout his life. He said that Gandhi was very much like Lincoln, in the sense that Gandhi was trying to prevent the Dalits from escaping the Hindu fold, because when you get Swaraj, when you get independence, it's all about demographics, majority rules. So if you have 45 million Dalits who escape from that Hindu fold, then, you know, the chances of the Hindus staying in power. And that's also why he was killed by Godse, because he was held accountable for his role in the partition of India. But Gandhi's view is we need to make sure that it's Hindus, specifically upper caste Hindus, who are running the show. So if we have to get rid of the Muslims and give them their own country, if we have to prevent the Dalits from escaping the Hindu fold through Buddhism or whatever, we'll do whatever we need to do in order to keep this Hindu fold secure. And you find this same argument made in The Doctor and the Saint by Arundhati Roy, which is an introduction to Annihilation of Caste, where essentially what Ambedkar was trying to do was say we need to get rid of caste altogether. Gandhi was against that every single day of his life up to death. He said the Varnashrama Dharma, that if you get rid of that, you get rid of Hinduism altogether, that you have to have Brahmins, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras. And, you know, even when we talk about the Dalits, the Black Untouchables of Africa, even in terms of their religious system, they have a color-coded ranking. So the color associated with Brahmins is white, and for them that means purity. And then the Kshatriyas, these are the warriors, is red. Then the Vaishyas, these are the traders, their color is yellow. Then the Shudras, which are the lowest of the low, almost, their color is black symbolically. And then outside of that, you have the Dalits, the outcasts, who are, they say that because of their karma, that's the reason why they're born into this caste. Therefore, you can rape them, you can burn them alive, you can dismember them, and so forth and so on. Then you have other scheduled castes, quote unquote, scheduled tribes, so forth and so on. So again, the reason why a lot of people don't know about this is because if you start off with the autobiography, you don't understand that you're dealing with a pathological liar. That he's saying that his heart was with the Zulus when at the time really he was trying to kill off Zulus. And I also make this comparison with Colonel Reginald Dyer, who was the one who ordered the Jallianwala Bagh massacre in India, also called the Amritsar massacre. That the main difference between Colonel Dyer and Gandhi was just opportunity. That the British gave Dyer guns to kill off, those who were there in India. They just didn't allow Gandhi to get the guns, because if he would have got the guns, he would have shown how loyal a subject that he was.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell our audience about his anti-blackness? Tell me more about his anti-blackness.
Right. Now, I can give you lots of quotes about his anti-blackness. I have quite a few. I like to focus on the quotes after he took his brahmacharya vow of non-violence. This is supposed to be his big epiphany, but again, you find that after this epiphany, he's talking about the Kafirs are 1 degree removed from the animal. This is after he supposedly made this change. I mentioned before, he was talking about degrade down to the level of a raw Kafir. You find this, relatively early in his life, in the 1890s. But when you get to 1905, he's saying the Kafir hardly works. He says they have to induce Kafirs to work. 1906, this is during the year of his so-called transformation. He talks about how happy it is that the court has declared that the Kafirs have no legal right to ride in the trams. He also talks about how gross and injustice it is to place Indians in the same class as a Kafir. He talks about how the Boer government insulted Indians by classing them as Kafirs. This is his transformation year, right? Again, he talks about how hardly any family has not gone off to fight the Kafir rebels, and they met a Kafir. So again, we see this all throughout his life. And again, after his supposed transformation, he talks about how they have been lumped with the Kafir races under the term colored people. They should not consider Indians to be on the same level as Kafirs. This is 1907. This is after his magic transformation, right? He says, if it is enforced, I would rather go to jail than to carry a pass like a Kafir. This is after his transformation. He says, if registration is made compulsory, there will be no difference between Indians and Kafirs. He talks about how it's such an injustice that the Indians are called coolies. We're talking about 1907, a year after his supposed transformation. He says how an injustice it is that they're called coolies, coolie lawyers, coolie doctors, coolie merchants. His women are called coolie Marys. And then he talks about his white fellow colonists. His children are afforded, he's talking about the Indians, how he's treated by his white fellow colonists. He says that his children are afforded no facilities for education except they attend the schools set apart for Kafirs. Could there be less encouragement for the Indian to blend and associate himself more closely with the larger life of the community? So again, where are we seeing this transformation? He didn't think up the transformation until he was writing the autobiography. At the time, of course, he was just writing as who he was, which is an honest racist. It wasn't until later that he made his transformation into a pathological lying racist. And I can give you more. He talks about the Kafirs who can be pleased with toys and pins, like we can also be fobbed off with trinkets like those Kafirs. He talks about, just on and on again. Now, also he talks about the Chandals, which is a specific type of Dalits. And he says that if Kafir is a term of opprobrium, meaning a term of disgrace, how much more that of a Chandal? This lets you know that Gandhi understood that the term Kafir is a term of disgrace because he himself acknowledges it in his writing. So you say, if you can understand that Kafir is a term of opprobrium, how much more to call a person a Chandal? And that's where he started using the term Harijan. Now, Harijan means children of God, quote unquote, but you also have to put that in context that this is a term that was introduced in the 1400s to describe the bastard children of temple prostitutes, which is why the Dalit people themselves have not taken up that term, because they understand that this is an insulting term for bastards, for lack of a better word. Those who men go to, they sleep with the women, and then they orphan those children because they're just children of prostitutes. So therefore, those are the Harijan. So again, when people see Gandhi using these terms and they don't understand, of course, Hindi or don't understand the context in which that term is used, you don't understand the Dalit struggle against the use of that term.
What message would you like to get out to people who are unaware of his racist legacy? What would you like to say to them about that?
Well, in terms of his racist legacy, the thing that you have to do is you have to actually read Gandhi's words. And then you also have to look at, so later on people say, oh, he changed, so forth and so on. But you have to look at his actions at the time. At the time, we're talking about the 1930s, 1940s now. If you still say he's a youth, at that time, you're a liar yourself. But again, in the 1930s is the time that he's opposing the untouchables. So if you read a book like what Congress and Gandhi have done to the untouchables, if you read a book like Annihilation of Caste, but specifically what Congress and Gandhi have done to the untouchables, you'll actually come to an understanding that at the time that he supposedly made this change is when he's opposing every single demand of the untouchables. Is where you see the Dalits themselves who are saying that everyone was very clear that Gandhi was the worst enemy of the untouchables. This is where you get to see where he is opposing the double vote. This is where you see that he's saying, I will fast unto the death in order to prevent the untouchables from getting, their just deserves, which they were already rewarded, but they had to fall back from that because they understood that if Gandhi dies in this fast, then all of the untouchables will be slaughtered. They were already subject to these pogroms where they were slaughtered wholesale and massacred. However, if Gandhi dies in this fast against the untouchable rights, then all of them will be slaughtered. So Ambedkar actually said that it was a vile thing that Gandhi did to force them to sign this Pune Pact where they signed away their rights, because again they were coerced and under threat of being slaughtered if Gandhi dies during the fast. So these are the things that again you have to read Gandhi himself and go beyond what I call improper Gandhi. That's improper propaganda about Gandhi, to actually read what he's doing and go beyond his words. A lot of people think racism is about words, that I say I don't like you, I say this, I say that. Look at his actions throughout his life. So look at his role in the segregation of the Durban Post and Telegraph offices. Look at his actual role in the Zulu War, the Bambata Rebellion as it's called, that he's actually agitating to get guns to kill these black people off in their own land. When he supposedly made this change, again, look at his role in fighting against the Dalits, the black untouchables of India. When you can see this, then you can see the thread that runs throughout his whole life as being pro-Indo-Aryan. You can see throughout his whole life as being anti-black. Regardless of his location, his actions are fighting against black people there in India. His actions are fighting against the black people there in South Africa, regardless of what he says. And to some degree, we can even say we prefer the young Gandhi, because that one is at least an honest racist. The problem, and it's the difference between the wolf and the fox, as Nana Malcolm X used to say. He says that the wolf, you know where he's coming from. He's coming with blood coming from his jaws. You can see he's trying to kill you. But the fox has what looks like a smile on his face. He's kind of slinking around, whatever. And that's what Gandhi became later in life, that he's slinking around and, making some types of overtures. But at the same time, he is destroying the lives of so many Dalits thereafter. And he actually said that he's going to start the Harijan Sevak Singh in order to be a trustee, so that the upper caste Hindus can do a penance for all of the thousands of years that they've been killing, raping, and dismembering the Dalits. So now what's the end result of this trusteeship? It's like asking a cat to guard the pot of milk. It's like asking a sadistic torturer to show sympathy to those who they are torturing. Because ever since the Dalits have not had their double vote or their special electorates, you had the 1968 Kilvimani massacre in Tamil Nadu. You had Uttar Pradesh, the massacre there, the Karam Chedu massacre, the Ranveer Sena massacre, the Sundur massacre. You have massacre after massacre. You have the Punjab massacre, the caste violence in Karnataka. You have Suraka Botmanje, who Arundhati Roy writes about in her introduction to Annihilation of Caste, as Dr. in the say. You have massacre after massacre after massacre, because guess what? You're in the hands of your torturers. You're not able to represent yourself, which is what Ambedkar was trying to do You're underneath these people who have been raping, killing you, and murdering you for thousands of years. So what's the best thing? Well, let's just keep you in their hands, right? That's not the best thing, and that's what Ambedkar saw clearly, which is why he said you have to annihilate caste altogether, whereas Gandhi said you cannot annihilate caste. You have to stay exactly in there. He actually said that there's scientific basis for caste. You understand? This is the extent to which Gandhi is going to. Now, this is just the racism, but if you like, we can talk about his pedophilia, as documented by his secretary, as documented by himself in letters back and forth, and his secretary's letter of resignation. He said that, you know, you're sleeping with Abba, your grandniece. We can go into his cover-up of the murder of William Doherty, an American citizen. We can go into various things about Gandhi that just makes him, you know, pretty much a lowlife and a liar. But more than
those sorry to cut you off. And like, so our for our audience in like a more simplified term, what does Gandhi, what does he mean for you? Like, you're saying he's racist. Can you tell me about that? Of course I'll add the examples as well, but just that he's racist, he was sexist, he was X, Y, and Z.
Right. So, you know, for me, what Gandhi symbolizes is, as long as his image is out there, it's a triumph of the lie over the truth. State-sponsored lies. You know, if you look at the Gandhi film, it was sponsored by the Indian government as their image of soft power. That if you understand who he was through his words and his deeds, then you'll understand that Gandhi was very much a racist. If you want to deal with his pedophilia, then you can look at how he was sleeping with Manu, his 17, 18-year-old grandniece, how he was sleeping with Abha. And he laments, he says, you know, the organ stayed erected. Oh, this is so, you know, embarrassing that my organ stayed erected. This is such a sin. Now, think about what it is for your grandnieces, that as you're dealing with your internal demons, that the organ stayed erected, that you're sleeping with them, you're sleeping with the wives of other people who you've forbidden for them from sleeping with their own wives in your ashram, but they all have to sleep with you naked so you can test out, all right, how good am I going with my vow of celibacy? If I don't test myself, it means that, you know, what does it all amount to? They have to bathe with me naked. You understand? These are some of the things that, you know, go in there. So for me, it represents, again, the triumph of lie over the truth, and then it represents lack of self-determination. So if the Indian government, the upper caste Hindus there, are able to foist their own heroes